Welcome, heathens and witches, to the Horn
and Cauldron
Podcast Pub Chat Edition because of the drinking. Today it's been a while, but today we're doing a pub chat where I'm in charge, which is better. Let's be real. Everybody loves me being in charge.
I don't know that I like that.
And nobody's out there to say yes or no, so because we're talking to a camera.
That's true.
But the camera probably likes me being in charge.
Yeah, but we also don't want people to have to feel like they need to choose between us because they all know that clearly I am the right answer. Yes.
Hallucinatory stuff, whatever, bro. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine, whatever. No. So yeah, on the pub chat weeks, as opposed to the full weeks, I'm in charge. I'm John Norgrove. This is Julie Norgrove. I don't know if I said that already. So we get to talk about just like a random topic whilst having a wee pint. So I am having a hazy IPA from Cooperage Brewing Company called Bow Down with this adorable cat on it. That's what I'm drinking today. And what are you drinking today?
And I have Bushido Way of the Warrior Japanese sake with this like cute little fox on it. I'm very hype on this stuff.
So
it's also, most importantly, it's in a can, but it's got a tiny lid. So like if I decide that I'm done, I can just be like, lid.
For later.
Yeah.
It's not big enough for later stuff, but I get it. I get this like, I'm gonna be responsible and only drink like some of the sake in the bottle. Yeah, that's how I think that sounds.
Even if I don't use the lid, it's just cute.
It is a cool lid.
Yeah.
I do like that.
Yeah,
and they sell aftermarket lids for beer cans.
Not as cool because it's not the same thing.
But they're tiny frisbees.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the tiny frisbee lids for beer cans?
I have.
They're quite rad. Anywho, we're immediately not on subject here, guys. Immediately not on subject.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. It's been a little bit of a while. We've been busy. Life has been just girls. A lot.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of lifing. But whatever. We're back at it again.
Yeah.
And today...
we got a little bit of a break.
Yeah, a little bit of a break.
Feeling refreshed.
Sure.
Sort of. Okay,
sure.
That's a lie.
Sure.
We don't feel
refreshed. We've been so busy. Listen, you know how bad it is? I only this week caught up with Star Trek. All right? I was 4 episodes behind. That's embarrassing. I'm a huge Trekkie. Yeah. I love Star Trek. 4 episodes behind. Absolutely embarrassing. So it's just whatever. We've been busy. It happens. We're going to get back into it though. Now that we've set some time aside to kind of like get all that stuff set together or what have you. But yeah, so grab yourself a pint and jump right in. Today we are talking cursorily kind of vibe style about masonry, and specifically the connection between, or potential connection between, masonry and the occult. Primarily because we have seen a bunch of things where people talk about Masons and the occult, or other like fraternal organizations. We're gonna put those all in quotes like that, and their connection to the occult. So I kind of wanted to like glancing blow this topic. So full disclosure, I am a master mason here in California. All right, and like a past master and all this stuff. Right, so I know a very good amount about masonry. And almost nothing about any of the other organizations we're going to talk about. As or if they come up.
And just to be clear, you are within masonry part of several like groups of masons. So
almost all of them.
Yeah.
Yes. Almost all of the potential organizations under the umbrella of standard masonry, I am a member of and have been active in the past in some way, shape, or form. Many of them resulting in me being in charge of the individual local organization, but not all of them. There are some that I have not, I never went that far in.
Yeah, so for those of you that are listening to this and going, well, you just didn't get high enough up. No.
Yeah. No, I know, and I know the people who are higher above me, like, I'm friends with these people. We're not. It's not what this is. So, firstly, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Theme of the week for us. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off and just put this out there, nice and plain and simple. No, there is nothing mysteriously occult about Masonry. That is a misunderstanding. I understand why people would think that. Because if you don't know something and you don't understand it, it feels mysterious. And if you don't know or don't understand that thing, and it's been around for a long time, it feels even more mysterious. I'm looking at you, anything to do with ancient aliens. All of it's wrong. Do you have an opinion? That's fine. You can have your opinion. You can fear or whatever the heck is going on with the Anunnakians. Like, whatever, right? But also, it's not real, right? The pyramid was just built by, like, a bunch of dudes.
Who had a lot of time on their hands. They didn't have social media to scroll
through. The infantilization and stupidification of ancient cultures is, like, not only remarkably toxic, but treats to a general misunderstanding of how you could actually solve a lot of these problems, especially since most of the excuses
only helps to perpetuate racist ideals.
like false narratives, and also almost all ancient alien stuff is like actually deeply rooted in racism. Yeah. So yay, that, I guess, for you. If this is all news to you, I'm sorry for this like very rapid lesson on this. If you would like more accurate science breakdowns for why ancient aliens is stupid, Mini Minuteman has a YouTube channel here on YouTube. We do not know this guy. We followed him for as long as he's had a YouTube channel. Watch his YouTube channel and you'll understand what we're talking about. He has like a whole thing,
his
and that's anti-ancient aliens.
Yeah.
So go to that if you need like a bigger adult to explain it to you than me, because I'm not a professional adult. He's like a whole professional adult. Yeah, so like obviously ancient people were capable of doing these things. And just the same, it's sort of like, why don't we talk about the like big tenant religions in the way of like being ritually connected to some stuff, in the same way that we talk about like fraternal organizations or smaller religions or any of that kind of stuff, right? It's like the like mystery cults of ancient Greece.
Yeah.
Or the like mystery cults of old England. Or like the mystery cults of like the progenitors of America. And like things like that. Like there's always going to be mystery cults. Mostly because, what's the best way to put this? It's like low-key fucking weird everywhere all the time, right?
Also,
there's like a bunch of stuff happening that's like quite confusing.
That's
and so we want a good reason.
Also a very like human nature thing.
Yeah.
Like people talk about, like every culture has a flood myth. Okay, like every culture has secret organizations. Like I want you to think back to high school now and then think about how cliquey things were in high school.
Yeah.
That never ever goes away.
Yeah. Well, adults
doesn't matter
are just
what the situation
kids
is.
with money, right? Like you're still cliquey. Do you work in an office? I guarantee you, if you work with a Brenda or whatever the name is of your office lady that you don't have, I've never met an office Brenda. I just chose a name at random.
Somewhere there's a Brenda going.
No hate on office Brendas. Maybe your office Brenda is the best one, and it's Rebecca that's bad or something. I don't know. I'm just choosing names here. Maybe it's Brian. Maybe
Stop
it's
alienating the listeners.
Yeah, they're not. I'm just choosing random names. Listen, if that alienated you, comment below for integration. Yeah. And I'll personally reply to your comment. You're alienated. Don't talk to me. Just like that.
There will be no apology.
There will be no apologies. The line is drawn here. We will go no further. This is just like, and I almost hate to use the word like cult with regard to some of these ancient organizations. And I would argue that probably at the time, cult really wasn't the thing that they were trying to do. Cult has a lot of negative connotations today, but they're just organizations like furthering and exploring something that is maybe not necessarily entirely mainstream. For what it's worth, Ancient Aliens is a cult. Right? Flat Earthers, cult, right? So they're doing the same thing. They're just wrong. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Right. So again, a lot of these are just organizations trying to do that stuff. A lot of these organizations, like especially the organizations for like what's his name, Aleister Crowley and all of them, right? A lot
Hermetic
of those
Order, Golden Dawn.
Orders. That's a great way to. That's a much better one. Hermetic Order and Golden Dawn and all that kind of stuff. These were organizations based in a practice centered around historical facts.
Yeah.
Right. And or historical interpretations of events in the past, right? And for an abundant lack of better words, this is not entirely dissimilar than what Masonry is. There is sort of like two kind of Masonry has sort of like a double helix historical meaning, right? You have both like an actual Mason, like a dude what with applies bricks.
Like a stonemason.
Yeah, like a Mason is just like a dude who uses math to cut rocks into bricks, to stack them mathematically, to build places for you, a regular religious person, right, and them, because they were doing the same religion, to do rituals and worship in. Because let's be real, churches, rituals, and worship and such.
Yes.
Right? So, like, that's all a Mason is, as, like, a career path. They also build houses and, like, bridges and shit. Right? And then there is the free and accepted Masons, or ancient free and accepted Masons, and we're not going to get into the difference between 3-letter and 4-letter Masons. It doesn't matter for what we're talking about today.
Unless you're super interested, then let us know.
We can always go deeper. But so then you have the sort of like the like fraternal order of Masons, which is, from an ancient standpoint, kind of like half men's group. Like if you've ever been in or part of like the tier of Christian organization where you have a men's group, it's like kind of like that, where it's just like a bunch of dudes getting together to like hang out or whatever. It's like sort of that, and also sort of a union.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what ancient Masonry was. It was essentially a union founded around a job, situated in a place where a lot of your jobs are doing like church stuff. That's why, like in old times, Masons were able to cross borders without question, because like I want a nice church, and like if I say like we didn't let like those French stonemasons come into my country, then like the German stonemasons are going to be like, hey, F you with this, we're out.
Yeah.
Right. Or whatever. Right. So that this is that union effect that I'm talking about. Yeah. Right. Where they're all sort of like part of one like greater work class, but it's the same thing with like smiths and shit like that. This isn't like Masons were especially special with that. Right. But also because of the intrinsic amount of knowledge you have from going from an apprentice Mason to a master Mason, which are also terms used in the fraternal organization of Masonry, right? You have to have a tremendous amount of knowledge. There's a lot of book learning involved, right? Because like if you don't know how to do a pillar or a circle, or if you can't figure out how to like calculate a circumference, or find something that's level or something to that extent, then you're not going to be able to succeed, right? At building a church that's not going to fall down. So it's a sort of like educated class of people, for an abundant lack of better words. And so from there, you have this sort of like, you start seeing the interleaving behind like where Masonry both branches together for the job stuff in ancient times and apart, but still associated in that sort of modern times. That being said, I have met Masons. I know Masons in the lodge who are also actual bricklayers, like actual stonemasons, same time, right? Yeah. So like it's not like you could do both or whatever. Like it still happens, but like so to the extent that like is Masonry like intrinsically occult, it is no more occult than any Christian church you're gonna random into. It's kind of like, and again, Masonry is technically not Christian, right? You have to believe in a higher power to be a Mason. But this is one of those, it's like an ancient holdover whereupon if you make, like you have to Think about it like court. This is a great example. Okay, when you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, like that kind of thing, like you do in a court. You'll put your hand on the Bible or whatever your book of faith is.
Yeah.
Right, when you're sworn in for like to do lawyer stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever. Witness stuff. It's the same thing, right? They want you to swear on a Bible or Quran or the Torah or the teachings of Gautama Siddhartha, whatever your thing is. They want you to do that, but that's primarily so that way you are held to a higher standard about those things.
Yeah.
Right? So you're like held like that. So like, sure, yeah. Is that ritual? Kind of, but it's not linearly the same thing as what you think about when you hear like Masons are doing like secret rituals or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like, so like out here where we live, right, the go-to cult mythos is a Bohemian Grove.
Bohemian Grove, yeah.
Right?
Which is actually, if we could get up above the trees at our house, we could see the location.
We could see where it is. If you couldn't see it to it.
The land that they own.
But you could be like, that spot of green over there, that's them. Yeah. Like we're close enough for that. But like, is Bohemian Grove, and like, I have never been to Bohemian Grove. I know vaguely where it is, but not with any degree of hyper precision. It's that way vaguely, I think. But like, is that cult TM, like Kool-Aid is involved, robes and like Zotnu's coming down in a spaceship, or Hail Bob's Comet or whatever that is. Hail Bop?
Yeah, Hail Bop.
Okay, Hail Bop.
Yeah, it's worse than you thought it was.
Yeah. Hey, that's fine. I thought it was Haley Bob, which is not even nearly as reasonable for what that's worth. But like that sort of thing, right? It's not like that kind of cult. And I think this is one of those linguistic like breaks that we have where we use the word cult for sort of everything. And that's not a cult. That's just like a fraternal organization or possibly an order. I don't know if they let ladies in.
I don't know.
Yeah, I genuinely have no clue. And to that extent, Masonry, being ancient, does not let ladies in. There are lady-specific organizations that are connected but different. And there are some places on Earth where Masons let ladies in. But that's, I don't really know all the details of that, because they're like specific places that chose rules based on something that I was not a part of, because that happened like way before I was born. So those are all different things. But like, so like, is Masonry a cult? No. Does it have ritual? I mean, yeah, but like, so does church, right? Like, are you getting up and sitting down and you're singing the hymn on page 147 and you're like, body of Christ in a Catholic church? Well, that's a ritual. That's a ritual where you're pretend eating a dude, right? Like that's like heavy ritual when you think about it, to use the corporate vernacular. Think about it from 10,000 feet, right?
Yeah.
That's heavy ritual. Masonry is essentially about that ritualistic, but with a different sort of structuring around it, because it's like fraternal ritual, in the same way that like, what are those called? Like those Greek things at
Frats.
Colleges, like like fraternities and sororities are like, they got like ritual to join Gamma Alpha Pi or whatever.
Yeah.
I did not do that, any of that. So I don't know what that is. I'm totally basing that off of like,
what we know in movies.
like 90s college frat movies, so take that with a grain of salt or whatever. But like, so, the idea that Masonry is negatively or darkly occult in general stems from both a misunderstanding because of the selected language we use to speak about these things, right? So it's not a cult. It is an order, but so was the Golden Dawn. And that wasn't a cult order.
Yes.
But also, like, were these guys trying to do all kind of... I mean, some of them were doing spooky shit in some of those.
But, like, not all
of them. But a lot of them were
kind of
not
all the time.
Right?
Yeah.
Or, like, think about the one that we talk about all the time, Bloody... like, the whole inception of Wicca.
Oh yeah,
is sort of like an orders and occult based and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But like it's not like they're not like we gotta sacrifice a sheep at dawn or like that. You know that like the like dark stuff that everybody talks about. And to that extent, most of the misunderstanding surrounding Masonry comes from a few books, some of the older books, some of the like. This was I secretly joined the Masons and revealed the secrets or whatever. Like most of those dudes are just fucking bold-faced liars, right? Or just making stuff up to make it sound more cool, or whatever for their book, as well as the fact that Masonry is one of those groups where you don't know who's in it. And I don't mean like, we're secret, we're not going to tell you that we're Masons, I'm breaking the rules. Like, that's not what I mean. I mean, like, if you were watching a bloody interview on TV of some famous actor, and you notice, like, oh, he's got a square and compass ring on, like a Masonic emblem ring on, or something like that, you'd be like, oh, like, that guy's, like, rich and powerful. Like, of course he's a Mason or whatever. But it's like, yeah, that guy just happens to be a Mason.
And also happens to be rich.
And also happens to be rich and powerful. Or also happens to be a politician. Or also happens to be, in ancient times, part of a royal family. Or modernly, also happens to be a business owner. Like, I technically own my own business and am a Mason. I am, and I cannot stress this at all, not part of the upper class, full stop. Not at all. I am poor.
Yeah.
Right? So like just because you're a Mason doesn't automatically mean. But again, you hear the comment, like, and you made this argument also, like, well, but like you're not higher up. Like the real high up ones, they're the ones that are like, that's not how that works. Right? That's not how that works in a myriad of ways. If a rich and powerful person is taking advantage of systems and such like that, he's kicked out of Masons too, dog. Because we don't tolerate that stuff. He's just a bad person standalonely, right? It's that like there's always going to be a bad apple or something to that extent, right? And they generally get like, that one's gross, don't eat it, and then thrown in a trash.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and that's not even just an orders, organizations, religion sort of a thing. That's politics. That's Hollywood. That's your work. I guarantee anybody listening to this old enough has probably worked at least one job where they're like, that guy could not have been fired soon enough. Monster. And everybody was just like, whoo, that was real weird for like 2 years there. I don't know how he stayed on for so long, or whatever the heck. Like that just happens, but like, again, it's primarily a fraternal organization based around historical events, right? Communicating through the lens of and terminology of stonemasons and the knowledge necessary to be a stonemason, and that essentially just works as like a guy's club, right? Like it's just like we're hanging out and doing business, but we don't talk about our businesses. We're not doing my business or somebody else's business or whatever. We're doing like lodge business, like. This building has an electricity bill. Would everybody like to pay this bill? And everybody's like, yes, we would like to pay this bill. And they're like, cool. Treasurer, pay that bill. And the treasurer goes like, cool. It's not dissimilar from student politics in high school. I was not part of student politics, but like, whatever. Again, I've seen enough TV. Like if you're in student politics in high school and it's like, oh, what's student politics? They're making the real decisions about what's going on in school. No, you're not. Man, like you have a voice in the theme for prom and like whatever, the color of the yearbook or some nonsense like that. But they're not choosing for school to open like, at 8 o'clock in the morning instead of 9.
Yeah, you're not making big decisions.
They're not firing Linda, the physics professor. Like you're not doing none of that, dude. Nobody cares. Yeah. Like that's not how this works, right? And to the same extent. right? Masons is a distributed organization whereupon there is like a Grand Lodge for the United States of America, and then a Grand Lodge for the state of California, and then a local lodge that's like the one that's in your town. Your town probably has a lodge, and you just don't know about it. Right? You easily like
or you've driven by it and like not
noticed it. Some of them are like not like inconspicuous, but like it's just like it's just like an office building.
Yeah, they're not in my experience, they're not really hidden.
If you know if you're keeping an eye out for the square and compass, right? The symbol of masonry, you're gonna like see it and be like, oh, that building's got a square and compass on it. That's like super rad. Like that's a lodge, but there's also a very good chance you're not gonna see it. Right? Or like if you have a town sign, like a lot of the towns around here, they have a like welcome to whatever effing town you're going to. Right? And then on that, you've got like the Rotary Club, and you've got the Masonic Lodge, and you've got like In-N-Out Burger, and you've got like
whatever your sister city in a far off country.
Yeah, you've got those like little plaques.
Are you a nuclear free zone?
Yeah, you've got your like plaques and signs that are like welcome to this place. Here's like a quick rundown that nobody's paying attention to because you're doing 65 miles an hour on the freeway. But like whatever, it's gonna make people feel good or something. Or like if you live, I don't know if this exists outside of the state of California, but in California you have adopt a freeway, adopt a highway programs where you I believe you donate a little bit of money and then you schedule like a cleanup where you help the Caltrans, that's the road service people out here, like clean up the sides of the freeway for like a day or two, and then they put a sign up and they're like, this stretch of freeway is sponsored by some organization, or sometimes it's literally a family doing it in honor of their dad, or it's like KFC, or it's the lodge, or it's the Rotary. Like Masons, I've seen those. We've done it several times. Rotary has done it several times. Like local Rotary has done it several times. I've seen it. The other fraternal organization, Bears something.
Oh, there's like a Moose Lodge, I think.
Moose. I knew it was an animal.
And like
like Moose Lodge thing, or like 2030, or like the what's the
Elks Lodge? I think is also one. Maybe it's Elks and not Moose.
What's the under 30 club? What's the like? It's like city council half Rotary, but it's like the under 30
club.
Yeah, there's
there's also like chamber groups.
Yeah,
there's
like chamber
a lot
of
groups that function in similar
this
ways.
Is essentially what masonry is. It's just it's a social organization. Makes it sound more like we're gonna have a party, and it's not that. We're not doing that, right? But it's the kind of organization, just like the like under 30 club or like Moose or Elks. Kind of, I don't really know what Moose and Elks is, so that could be wrong. If you're a Moose or an Elk, and you have access to thumbs to type, and you're watching this YouTube video, comment below what you're up to. Running 45 miles an hour in the snow, looking at you mooses, you monsters. It's horrifying. But so it's like that sort of energy.
Yeah.
It's just like a fraternal organization. I don't mean fraternal in like the boys only part. I just don't know. I don't know what it's called when they're like both genders.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know that word. But like it's like any of those organizations, right? Like if you live in a place that's like super super churchy, most of your churches have a book club that probably has a fun name, and they have like we do Psalms 14:3. That was a guess. Do not look in. Like we do Psalms 14:3. That's the passage we read before we do a book review every time, or whatever. It's like basically the same thing, right? So they're like social organizations, social orders that just sort of attract people based on different things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not dissimilar in the same vein as like if you're very into motorcycles, you would join a motorcycle club.
Yeah.
If you're a big motorcycle rider and you don't like books, you're not joining a book club. That would be weird, dog. It would be so weird, right?
Yeah.
So like you find the thing that you're in. And just the same, if you're like, I don't want to do nothing. I don't want nothing to do with no religion. and no ritual and none of that stuff and no history and like all I care about is motorcycles, right? And you don't care about none of that other stuff, it's unlikely that you're going to join Masons, right? Yeah. But if you're into that stuff and you're into motorcycles, you can do both, right? We're not like, you can only do one, right? This isn't like exclusive or something,
yeah.
You know? So it's sort of that thing. It's a lot more about the like history and the research and like the use of the word ritual in the coming statements does not mean spooky ritual, right? It's just like the term for memory work and putting on a play. I would argue our ritual is no different than actual theater work.
Oh, so you're like business theater kids.
Ancient business theater kids. Well, we're not really business oriented. See, that's the other thing is that like, I know that I've compared us to like chambers and like Rotary, which are business oriented things. We're not linearly business oriented. It's not like I only joined Masons once I started my own business.
Oh yeah.
You know, or some nonsense like that. Like it's not like that stuff. Like, you know how like, I think Rotary, you have to be like a business owner or manager or something. Rotary has something businessy associated, I thought.
You gotta,
but I could be wrong.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know
that you don't have to be, but I don't know what the requirements.
You know what? It's like, okay, so this is the best way I can describe this. You know how like if you don't own a home, you're gonna learn this. I'm sorry about this knowledge beforehand. And honestly, you should already be vested. I was vested long before I owned a home. But like once you reach a certain age, you have to choose a tool brand. Are you a Makita guy or girl? Are you a Ryobi person? Are you a Milwaukee person? Are you a DeWalt person? Are you only buying those off-brand ones from Walmart and suffering from a brain disease? Whatever, right? I'm not hating. I'm a Ryobi person. What up? Lime green supremacy. But so like you have to spec into tools, and then in general, that's what you stick with. Does it mean that all of my tools are Ryobi? No. A lot of them are, some of them are not, right? But you generally spec into the thing that like, whether you're introduced to it for a reason or you're interested in something that they offer or something to that extent, that's kind of like the reason why you spec into that stuff, right? So it's the same thing with a lot of these organizations, is that you're sort of only within the wheelhouse of things that you know, right? Like if I didn't know, like if I didn't work for the brewery that I worked for, and like I didn't have like family that was in Rotary, I would not know what Rotary is. Like I see I think it's blue and yellow cog sign on the road at the like, welcome to Santa Rosa. Here's a bunch of stuff that we have. Like I've seen the Rotary sign, and like I have some family members that are in Rotary. I genuinely don't know what it's about, by the by, but I feel like it's businessy. That could be so wrong. And if I am wrong, please correct me. But like it feels businessy to me. And so, like, you could do that. I know people who do, like, Chamber of Commerce is their big thing. Or, like, school board. Like, what's that? PTA stuff, you know, or whatever. So, like, it's one of those sort of things, right? If the information within Masonry is interesting to you, then you would arguably work towards understanding more about Masonry and joining Masonry, and then, like, furthering your Masonic career, right? Which is just like your time in Masonry, right? And move forwards with that. Some people join Masonry and they're like, it's not as hype as I want it to be. There's no secrets. Yeah, or whatever, right? And some people join Masonry, like myself, right? Where it's like, I really like the ritual work. I have good memory, so I can remember the work well, and I'm interested in the time period and the ritual of it. And I enjoy and am interested in the use of both like stonemason and mathematical terms to explore these particular teachings, right? And of course, a lot of these teachings are just literally straight out of the like Christian Bible, right? But like to explore and expound upon those things, and that's interesting, and that's why I joined, and that's why I continue to be an active member of Masonry. But like, if that's not stuff that you're into, right? If like stonemason terms and geometry are not your hype, then like you're just not interested in it. right? And again, that's sort of like, I think it's mostly that, like, one, it's secrets. And anything with secrets, people are like, maybe aliens though, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's be totally real. Everything is ancient aliens if you have any questions.
Ancient aliens or demons.
Yeah, or demons, right? Or like some sort of, they're doing evil demon stuff.
New World Order.
They're doing New World Order stuff. Or they're doing, what's that movie where Tom Cruise plays the piano for a cult? Like a secret New World Order cult?
Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes Wide Shut. Man, I haven't seen that in so long. But like Eyes Wide Shut, like it's not Eyes Wide Shut stuff. It's not New World Order stuff, right? In the grand scheme of things, like, again, not to burst too many people's bubbles here, that's just not happening, right? I mean, rich people play at power and fancy and stuff like that, but like, ask Marie Antoinette how long that lasts, right?
Yeah.
So, and in the grand scheme of things, they're like one bad investment or one dumb billionaire away from not having any money ever again.
Yeah.
Right? You know?
Yeah.
Like, so like, it's not this big occult secret like thing. Is it a large organization? Yeah. Also, it dates further back than Philip the Fair of France, dog. It's ancient, so it's enormous and everywhere. That's just what happens. Time gently disseminates stuff evenly over the plane of reality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like entropy. Masonry is as big as it is because of the entropic effects of reality, right? But I would make the same argument about any of the other, like, even ancient Greek occult stuff. We still talk about these cults that this is a Dionysian cult, and like now we do things today that are directly affected by that Dionysian cult, or for what it's worth, by that Jesus cult that is now Christianity, right? And Catholicism and all those other things. So, like, again, it's just the even dissemination of things, which is why it feels so big. And there's obviously a lot of people in it, and nobody bats an eye when you find out that, like, Brian, the guy at the checkout counter, is a Mason. But when you see that, like, some famous actor or politician's a Mason, everybody's like, ugh, secret stuff, man. But, like, they're both Masons. They both have the same, part to play in the lodge, as it were. So, like, it's one of those things that I don't really, like, this came up in, I think, a YouTube video we were watching, where they were just like, this is dumb, or whatever. And so I was like, you know what? Let's spend an amount of time and just sort of, like, vamp on, like, what is and isn't Masonry, and how should it really be communicated about in the modern time? Yeah. Right? With regard to those things.
So a lot of people that have someone in their life, or like fairly adjacent to their life, that was involved in Masonry sort of have like two different paths of experiences that kind of typically lend into the mystery of it all. And one of those is when someone who is not involved in Masonry locates one of the books. It's typically filled with what looks like, to someone who's not a Mason, like
gibberish.
Sure,
yeah. It's called a cipher. So linguistically speaking, the difference between a cipher and a code is that a code has a key that can unlock it. A cipher has knowledge that unlocks it. Let me explain this even further to hyper clarify it. When you find a Masonic ritual book, we just call it a ritual book, right? It just has a bunch of gargly goop letters and like numbers and symbols in it, right? That to a person who does not already know those words looks unintelligible. And if you were given an infinite amount of time and all of the supercomputers in the world, you would not be able to unlock the secrets of the book, because there are places in the book, it's actually like a thing that I enjoy, and some of the other guys I know have enjoyed pointing out or noticing, where like in the same sentence, the same letter or symbol will mean different things. Right? Mm-hmm. Because there's not a code. There's not a key. It's a cipher. What a cipher is it is a memory reminding device, right? So a cipher is technically no different than a mnemonic device.
Yeah.
But written down.
Yeah.
Right? So like if I'm looking at the letters in their order and like, the spacing.
Like pretty much anybody in our generation, PEMDAS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like PEMDAS or like Roy G. Biv or any of those things.
Yeah.
Where it's like, and I still do this in my head for PEMDAS and for Roy G. Biv to remember the order of these things. But the PEMDAS is primarily because I follow a lot of engineering Twitter accounts that just post math equations and then start arguments about how to do math properly. Because a lot of people forget about PEMDAS. You learned that in school. Get your shit together, guys. It's fun for people to be that wrong.
Yeah. So that's what a cipher is.
Yeah, now, it's like there's no code and I can read it. But the only reason why I can read it is because like I actually know all of those words already. Like I've committed them to memory, and the cipher is just reminding me of the words.
Yeah.
Right? So there's also, for me, there's like a rhythm to it. Like you can't just like, for the most part, pick up a cipher and be like, right here, this word is this. But if you read the sentences in context, your brain goes like Rolodex style and goes like, this is the part of the memory that you're trying to access. This is what this sentence means.
Yeah.
Right? And of course, the more you learn it, the faster you're able to recognize where that is in your specific book. Yeah. Right? I mean, like when Dad was over the other day, right? I have a newer edition. They're the same book. They're written. They have the exact same words in them. But they're just formatted slightly differently. Like my book has slightly larger text than his book does, which means that sometimes things are in different places, like on the page. And my dad's book, his cipher, is from like the 90s, and mine is from like the 2000s. Right? It's just the book that was assigned us, right? But what it means is that our books are in different places. So I would have more of a difficult time reading and finding stuff in Dad's book simply because I'm used to my book's layout.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right?
So the other thing that people talk about when they've had like somebody, that they know that was in Masonry is that oftentimes they don't really talk
about Masonry.
Being a Mason.
Yeah.
Either about being a Mason at all or about what it is that they're doing.
Sure.
And like,
well, there is an implicit secrecy to fraternal organizations like that. Right? It's that like we've got our secrets which bind us together in order to like make us this like fun fraternal organization or whatever.
Because you have to be like a part of it to like know all the stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like, so there's sort of two answers to this. First of all, there are obviously things you can talk about and things you can't talk about, right? And so, for, again, obvious reasons, if I don't talk about anything, then I'm definitely not overstepping.
Yes.
Right? Yes. But if I'm talking about something and I, like, accidentally say too much,
and I imagine that, like, the location as well as, like, the era that this person was a Mason in probably makes a huge difference. Like somebody who's a Mason currently now, like you, may feel quite differently about some of the areas that are like gray or like totally okay to talk about than like somebody who lived in like the 1930s.
Yeah,
maybe even
in the old days, right? It was much more of a like you don't talk about it, full stop. Yeah. Right. But this was also a time when like there was a lot of stuff like that you just didn't talk about.
Yeah.
Right? So there's definitely a difference there. Some people are much more open about it. Some people are not open about it. There were places and times where people were persecuted for being Masons. So then it was like very not okay to talk about. As an example, there were a lot of Masons who were like taken and sent into camps during World War II in Germany. But just like there were a bunch of other people sent into these camps, there were, I mean, like, it was obviously the largest proponent of this was Jewish people. But there were some Christians. There were some Masons. There were some the Romani gypsies were sent into these camps, or just, you know, taken care of. World War II is a nightmare. So, you know, there were definitely times when Masons were persecuted, as well as sometimes it's just sort of low-key not worth the energy. We've all had that weekend where, like, you had a fun weekend and it was great and you, like, did a bunch of cool stuff, and then you get to work and you're like, oh, they're like, oh, what did you do this weekend? And you're like, oh, I went to the beach. And they're like, oh, what did you do at the beach? And you're like, God damn it, man, we had a picnic. Like, I don't need to get into the details of how I had a foot race with a lifeguard and we ended up bumping into this thing. And like, you don't need to get into the whole thing. So sometimes it's easier to just, like, kind of not participate in those conversations, you know? And so the same thing with, like, I don't want to, like, accidentally say too much sort of a thing. There's also the, like, if you mention it, and I've dealt with this a billion times, right? Where somebody mentions something, you know, ancient alien-y, we're picking on them, about Masons, and you're like, oh, that's not what that is. And they're like, you don't know the truth, man. And I'm just like, oh, I'm a Mason. I do. Don't worry, girl. I got this. And they're like, well, but actually, and it's like, I don't want to have this bloody conversation or whatever. Or, like, I have a square and compass tattoo on my arm. And so, like, sometimes I'll have people come up to me and they're just like, is that a Mason thing? And I'm just like, yeah, man, I'm a Mason here in town. And they're like, so are you guys, like, eating babies or something? And you're just like, no, I'm sorry. Do you think I just admitted to that? What the hell are you talking about, dude?
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, well, but I heard. And I'm like, that's cool,
let me tell
dog,
you what,
but you're
I
wrong.
have been to dinners with Masons, and they are definitely not eating babies. No. These guys
we're
aren't
eating meatloaf,
even,
dog.
They're not
even well seasoned sometimes.
They're generally,
sometimes good, right? The secret is the pies
not even eating
from
hot
the
sauce, y'all. Like,
yeah, like we're not doing that kind of stuff, you know. Or they're like, well, you know, it's anti-Christian, and it's like that's not true at all, right? Like, not only is there a separate organization within Masonry that requires you specifically to be Christian, called the Knights Templar, all right, but most Masons are not just Christians, but practicing church regularly Christians. So, nah, this is definitely Christian, dude. I don't know what you're talking about, right? Or it's like, well, it's Christian, but not Catholic, or it's Catholic, but not Presbyterian, or, you know, what, you know, all of the different flavors of Christianity got some sort of beef with one or several of the other flavors of Christianity. A lot of weird infighting there about that. But, like, so for a lot of people, it's just kind of, like, not worth the effort to be, like, flaunting it, you know?
Yeah.
To have the bumper sticker or a tattoo or to wear a ring or whatever. Like, I have a tattoo and I've had bumper stickers in the past, but, like, I don't wear a Masonic ring all the time. One, low-key don't know where it is.
You also don't wear rings.
But also, I don't wear rings, right? I mean, I don't wear rings so hard that we got a tattoo for our wedding ring because I don't want to wear rings because I worked at a hospital and I saw people get degloved, and it's just, it lives with me, man.
Yeah.
I don't want to, I use too many power tools for that.
If somebody did want to become a Mason, like they listen to this, or they're I'm not trying to sell people on Masonry right now.
Oh my God,
no.
I am solely trying to address questions in, like, a cool kid way I'm seeing come up.
If somebody did want to become a Mason or want to learn more about Masonry in general, what would you recommend?
So, for learning's sake, right, you have two great resources. Whatever your state or country's local Masonic organization is. Like, if you're from Kentucky, just look up the Kentucky Grand Lodge, right? So a Masonic hall or building is called a lodge. The statewide super organization that controls it is called a Grand Lodge. It's just one, it's bigger than a regular one.
Yeah.
So look up your state or local's Grand Lodge and just read their website. They have a ton of information. And at the same time, I would recommend finding YouTube videos or documentaries, because I have seen documentaries like even on like back in the day when they actually did History Channel and things like that are not conspiracy based. An example is if it is not interviewing several Masons that are active Masons, it's probably a conspiracy. They're probably lying to you, right? One of the past Grand Masters for Scotland, he's an old Scottish guy. I have met this dude. He was like at Grand Lodge in Scotland when Dad and I visited. He was on the History Channel documentary that they did about Masons. It was like a 4-part documentary. It's very well made. He's the main narrator for it. He is interviewed about everything in it, right? He also has several interviews like online. A lot of Grand Lodges have interviews with like Grand Masters or past Grand Masters. There's a lot of education out there about it because in the grand scheme of things, Masonry is like kind of a historical society.
Yeah.
Right? I would almost argue Masonry is more of a historical society than it is a religious organization, simply because it's got a definite history and it has a very not definite religion. Right? Because you could be any religion. So if you want to learn more, specifically try to steer clear of the conspiracy side of things so you can understand actually what's sort of going on. Right? To get further into it. And again, if you do in fact want to join Masonry, find a local lodge and talk to them. That's the secret. Right? It's just like find your local lodge and then just go and be like, hey guys, this is super interesting. I would love to know more about it. What's up? And then you can talk to some guys. Right? And they're going to tell you and they're going to feel you out and say like, hey, like, it sounds like you're really interested in this. You are like, these guys are cool. This is something that I'd be interested in getting into. Or you talk to your local guys and you're like, this isn't really my vibe. Or like, I thought there was going to be more, whatever, rock stuff. Not a lot of rocks in this. And you're like, yeah, it's not a lot of rocks. And you're like, all right, well, I guess I'll just go do something with more rocks, or whatever, like whatever your thing is. Right? So like, yeah, definitely. If you want to join or you want more information, one, do the diligence of making sure. And I would argue that this should be true of everything you do in your life. And if you are learning this from me now, I am so sorry. Oh my God. Do not take shit at surface value, right? Like, please do research and understand before you hear these people out what the basis for where they're like, if this person is talking about Masonry and they're not a Mason, they do not know. They just don't. They might have read some books or done some research on it, but they don't know, right? And any person who's talking about Masonry who isn't a Mason, who has the sort of self-value and to be honest with you, is going to outrightly say, I don't know, I'm not a Mason, I have heard this or I think this, but I cannot be sure of this. And if they're not doing that due diligence, then their opinion is entirely useless, right? That's just the way that you need to be doing this stuff. It's just like when you read an article, right? You need to read an article and see, like, is this person writing this from the point of view of trying to convince me to vote some way or buy some product? Obviously, somebody trying to buy some product is going to, or trying to sell you some product is going to specifically hype that product up, whether or not that is true about the quality of that product.
Yeah.
Right? So to the same extent, if somebody's trying to convince you of some sort of like grand globalist scheme to do a thing, right? And they don't have any what is that, like first order experience in that space, then obviously, right, they're simply trying to further their opinion of the thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I would definitely say like find some Masons, talk to them, hang out with them, see if you guys are cool. Because if you're cool, right, again, like any organization, fraternal or otherwise, right, if you don't want to hang out with those people, don't. Right? Like, you're not going to be like, I'm going to join Gamma Kappa Lambda because everybody says I should join it. And then you meet them and you're like, these guys are all dicks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, then don't join. Don't go to the cool one or whatever, right? Don't go to the bro chatty one. Go to the like cool nerd one. They had better parties anyway, right? And better music selection. At least in those movies. But like, so you see what I'm saying there? Yeah. So like, that's sort of what I would say about that is like, go find some Masons and like chit chat with them, hang out with them, see what the vibe is. And if the vibe fits, then like petition to join, you know, and see what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, is there anything I feel like I've covered? I feel like I've been like, but, I'm always like that.
I plead the fifth.
Yeah, I'm always like that. That's fair. I did that to me. I walked directly into that.
I think this touches on most of the conspiracy stuff.
Yeah.
And gives people like a good idea of
my favorite Mason conspiracy homework of the day. If you've made it this far, thank you. And again, sorry with the it's just a thing that happens from my head. But what's your favorite Masonry conspiracy? My favorite Masonry conspiracy is that we have all of the gold. Not a lot of gold.
That's
No. Hold on. Not a lot of gold. I have been told that we have all of the gold. And then when I'm like, we do not, I am poor. They're like, no, you're not important enough. The real important ones have all the gold. And I'm like, they also do not. But sure. Yes. If that's what you need to believe, good luck, man.
Yeah, I think that
right?
That one is
all of the gold is my
favorite too.
It's innocuous. It's not evil like some of the more ancient aliens energy ones.
You know,
but all of the gold is just so ridiculous, especially when they're saying it to me. Because sometimes you're like, I'm in a tuxedo, and they're like, they have all the gold, and I'm just like, I don't. But I understand that you think that because I'm like wearing a tuxedo right now, right?
Yeah.
I look fly. I get it. But my favorite is when like somebody's talking to me, and I'm like, I've had this conversation at the beach in a Speedo, and they're just like, well, but like the Masons have all the golds. And I'm just like, yeah, I am at the same beach as you right now in a Speedo. I don't think I have all the gold. I think it would be at a nicer beach. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I like this beach, but I would be at a nicer one.
I would say that...
have you seen my house?
A close second is that basically National Treasure is based on true
my goodness. We didn't even touch on National Treasure.
Well, that's for part 2. We're not talking about
National
that
Treasure and the Da Vinci Code. Two just... directly not helpful conversation starting and ending points, regardless of the fact that the Da Vinci Code and the sequel are good books, not great movies. But yeah. I do love the Da Vinci Code book, and National Treasure is absolutely an instantaneous classic. I fucking love those movies so much, dude. Oh man, they're so good. Yeah. But the Masonry thing, 100% wrong in those. Yeah. But yeah, so like whatever, we'll get into that later if you guys so desire. Comment below, and yeah, this was just sort of like a little what that Masonry do. Yeah. Yeah. Whatever, right? So yeah, either way, before I keep ranting and get up to get more beer. I have been John Norgrove. This has been Julie Norgrove. This has been the Horn
and Cauldron
podcast. And this has been Is Masonry Occult pub chat episode. Yeah. With Bev and with Jonathan rambling. The best way to do rambling. Jonathan rambling. You're welcome. You're welcome for that. So yeah, we'll catch you guys next time. Oh my goodness. Before we go, shout out to our patrons. You guys are the best.
Thank you for helping us do what we do and better every time. We really appreciate it.
Spun out on that one a little bit. That's totally okay. Thank you for the backup. And yeah, we will catch you guys next time for more mystical, magical, probably mayhem. Yep. See you later, guys.
Yeah. And don't forget, breathe in self-confidence and breathe out self-doubt.